Hey guys, City Walk, City Wall here, and welcome back to Kobayashi Island. This episode is going to be all about the areas that the passenger planes go, the runways, the taxiways, the gates at the terminals, and the areas around the gates. You might imagine there's a lot of repetitive stuff that goes into this, lots of detailing gates over and over, adding in grass around miles of runway, so just a warning, I edited out a lot of the repetitive stuff from this video, so you're going to see me actually do everything, but you won't see me do it over and over and over. I cut out a lot of that kind of stuff. Real quick, before I get into any building, I just wanted to show you, I found this thing that Ronix69 made, these snow props that I put on top of the volcano. They're not the most amazing thing in the world. It would be better to use the theme mixer to have like the oil or ore texture be snow, but I'm using both those textures a lot in Kobayashi Island, so I don't know, that didn't really work for me. So I think this is the next best option to get some snow on the top of this mountain, and I think it looks nice if you kind of squint or don't really look at it too close. It's a little questionable, but anyways, let's get into the episode. So the first big thing that I worked on this episode was detailing up the gates and the places where the planes come and park to get to the terminals. There's a bunch of specific props that I used for this. You can find them all in my airports collection on the workshop. And there's basically like a prop plane stand decal that you just saw me place down. Some baggage carts, baggage conveyor belt type things, some catering trucks, fuel trucks, tow cars that push the plane backwards when you're leaving the gates, and a pack of jet bridges that connect from the terminal to the airplanes. So what I did was I got all of them at once, put them down, and detailed up the first three gates here, and then copied everything that went into those three gates all around the first terminal to another like 10 gates, and then just copied the entire terminal's worth of detailing to the other two terminals. So I didn't really detail up all these gates individually. I have just a few different types of airplanes. I definitely didn't go crazy downloading like 100 different airplanes like I've done in the past. I wanted to keep things simple and keep my asset count down. So I just have this one blue Korean Airlines airplane, a Japan Airlines airplane, United Airlines, and then a cargo airplane. And for each one, I have a prop version and a vehicle version downloaded so that I can place down parked ones, and then also have real ones that are vehicles come up to the gates and pick up and drop off people. So I sectioned it off where there's different parts of the airport, like a Japan Airlines terminal, and I put only parked planes of that type there, and then set the gates at that terminal to only be able to spawn and receive that kind of plane as well. It's not just like random planes pulling up to random gates. I was looking at a lot of airports on Google Maps when I was doing this, and it's pretty amazing to me just how much junk is littered around these gates. There's so many baggage carts and cars and random stuff around. So I was really just going for clutter when I was detailing these gates. And the other thing that I noticed, which was probably my biggest struggle of this entire episode, was in real life, the concrete around the terminals is very discolored and worn, and it doesn't really look like it was necessarily all paved at the same time. It's not just like one big clean slab of concrete like it looks here in City Skylines. So it was really difficult trying to figure out ways to replicate that. I've seen in the past people post some amazing screenshots of what they've done in cities where they've gotten really high-res textures of the ground around airports and used procedural objects to load those textures into the ground and cover up the entire ground and make it look like extremely real. But that's a little involved for me, and I'm not 100% sure where you might get a texture like that. So what I ended up doing here, I used a ton of decals and put those everywhere, and I also was really trying to break up the concrete here. So I did that in a couple different ways. I used poppable asphalt to cover some of the different areas with like a different color, so that it looked like maybe it was a newly paved surface, and that kind of broke it up a little bit. And then I also was trying to break it up with random things around the airport, like construction sites or parking areas or storage areas, or just like a plane that was like mid pulling out, or just like kind of waiting there, or just anything that I could do to kind of just not have, you know, an insane amount of empty concrete sitting around. So that was kind of the strategy for that. The other big thing that took a good amount of effort to create around these terminals was these airport road networks and bus routes. There's this awesome pack of airport roads and another awesome pack of airport vehicles, which is like baggage carts, catering trucks, things like that. And they spawn as buses. So you can set them to do routes around the airport, and that's what I did here. They do a bunch of loops. I have a number of these airport roads going around. I have a loop that goes directly around each terminal, another loop around the outside of where the airplanes park, and then roads that connect all the terminals. You're seeing me place them all down now. So what I have is a bunch of baggage carts and all these different vehicles on different routes going throughout the airport, which from a distance looks really awesome, and it makes the airport really look bustling and busy. But one issue I was having with this, you know, I've mentioned in the last few episodes how it's very difficult for citizens to get from to each terminal, and they have to do it in very specific ways in order to force them to. Some of them use the upstairs loop of the airport entrance, and some of them use the downstairs road, and some of them use the train. And I have it split up, so there ends up being a desire for these citizens to find quicker ways to get to the terminals and in between terminals. And so I was having problems with citizens trying to use the baggage carts as actual buses, you know, because they are, and it was causing people to be walking around on the tarmac, which was not really ideal. So it took a lot of finessing and moving around airplane stands and moving roads and deleting roads in order to stop people from being able to actually get onto this road network. So that took a little while to do off camera. And what you're seeing me do right now, I know this isn't the most realistic thing in the world, the way that these lines are, but I was noticing, you know, in city skylines, these taxiways have very specific lines, yellow lines that denote where where the planes are going. And so I wanted to play off of that. And so you're just seeing me now put down a ton of decals all over that just kind of like show every single route that a plane would be able to take in sort of the, you know, imagined routes, you know, not like actual, this is everywhere that a real plane in the game, a vehicle plane could go, but more just like a route to get to every single one of these gates. So I put a ton of decals down. And then also a ton of kind of grime and crack decals that you just saw me do as well. And right now I'm putting down sort of the first of these areas that's like a kind of a storage area or construction area. And I'm going to do a bunch of these in the next few minutes of this episode, just trying to find areas of this giant tarmac that aren't super useful in terms of like a plane would be able to get around here. Putting something here wouldn't cause issues and block up planes or anything, but just something where, you know, there's some sort of stuff that is sitting on this tarmac to kind of break up how big and empty and open it is, and just trying to fill it up with all different sorts of things. So some of them, like I said, are storage. Some of them are construction areas, because I know that's a big part of airport terminals. Is a lot of times there's random things under construction for years, and you can just like see these construction sites when you're sitting inside and looking out at the airport from inside the terminal. And so that's what this one is here right now, is kind of a construction site where maybe they're digging up some old pipes, or I don't know, adding in some sort of thing out here in the tarmac for the future, I just wanted to mention one more time, in case you missed me talking about it, I've released a save game for Kobayashi Island, and I'm opening it up to you guys to build an area in the city that I'll import into the real Kobayashi Island here. It's sort of a contest who can build the best area, and I think it'll be pretty fun. It's an area of downtown, it's a pretty large area, and you have the freedom to build whatever you want. If you submit it to me and it's better than everyone else's, I'll put it in the game, show it off to everyone, and yeah. So there's instructions in the description of this video. And if you head back over to the Honda Factory episode a few episodes ago, the first few minutes of that video, I mention how to submit your builds, and I show you where that area is exactly, and kind of give you some outlines. So if you're interested, head back over there, give that a little watch, those first couple minutes, and just go ahead and do it. Make something, send it over. It'll be really fun, and the more people who do it, the better the end result will be. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So I mentioned a few episodes ago how I was looking for some custom assets for this new series that I'm doing, and it's been a little while, and I'm very happy to report that I've spent this interim time here learning Blender and how to import assets into the game. So I've got a few things in the works at this point, and most of them relate to my new series, which I'll talk about in a second, but there is one asset that I made for Kobayashi Island, which I will be putting in the game in a couple episodes from now. Cool little billboard that I'll be releasing on the workshop as well. It's animated. In terms of my next series, it's really coming together at this point. It's looking pretty good. I have released a trailer for it on my Patreon account. So if you're interested in seeing it, head over to Patreon and you'll be able to check it out there. And also on Patreon, you'll be able to see this entire series, each episode, about a week before it actually comes out for everyone else. So head over to Patreon. The link is in the description of this video. And also on Patreon, I'll be releasing the save games for this series. I'll mention it again once it actually starts coming out, but that's one of the bonuses that I'll be doing on Patreon, is that you have access to this save game. And I think it's going to be a pretty interesting one. I would venture a guess that if 100 people tried to guess what the city was going to be, not a single person would get it right. I think it's going to be pretty crazy. What I've already built is actually, I think, looking really good. I'm pretty excited for it. It's a very small city. It's very detailed, so pretty different from Kobayashi Island in many ways. But I think a lot cooler than Kobayashi Island. So that trailer is out for everyone on Patreon now. So if you're interested in seeing it, go check it out over there. Link is down below, and it'll be out to everyone on YouTube in another week or two. So you can look forward to that. Right now, you're seeing me build this area where the baggage carts kind of deliver and pick up the baggage that would be taken to the individual gates. And this area, I didn't really base this off of anything in real life. I didn't really do much research, but I do feel like it's the kind of thing that an airport would have, where there's a need for baggage carts to be able to bring stuff to the areas where people collect their baggage or drop off their baggage when they're checking in. And so that's kind of what this is. I really went to town on these decals that you're seeing me do now. Probably a little too intense if you ask me, but I think the end result is kind of cool. These baggage carts really kind of, this is the spot where all of the buses, the different types of things, the catering vehicles, the fuel vehicles, they all spawn from here. This is where the bus depot is, like under these little arms that stick out from the terminal. And yeah, so that's kind of the next thing I'm working on for a little bit here. So the last big thing that happened this episode is detailing up these runways. They're obviously massive, so this was one of the main areas that I was cutting out a lot of repetitive footage from this video. Started off by making sort of a utility road that goes around the entire airport, all the runways, and a fence just outside of that. Some blast shields at the end of each runway. And then I really spent a long time placing down grasses all around the runways. I use these Ronix 69 low poly grass cover things. I think they're buildings. You're seeing me place down some now. And also some vanilla ground cover props, a few little tiny bushes, and those sort of yellow and black signs that tell the airplanes, which taxiway or runway they're on or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what they're for, but I think that they denote the names of the taxiways or something. So that's all around the runways. There's also a little maintenance area out here. I just tried to give some detail to these areas, even though I know they're not usually the most detailed or interesting places. So that's what you're seeing me do now, some mulch, and I was figuring maybe they trim the grass and this is where they keep the lawnmower or whatever. And then I also spent some time here placing down props on the actual runways, things that kind of made sense in an airport. So, obviously there's these little signs that you're seeing me put down now, but then I also spent some time doing some markings and some lights, and just kind of tried to give these runways as much detail as I could in the amount of time that I was really allotting myself to do it, because obviously these runways are incredibly massive. They're probably the single biggest thing in Kobayashi Island, and I'm only spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes of footage here of showing you exactly what went into it. And obviously I'm not going into insane detail working on these areas, but I did want them to feel somewhat finished, even though I wasn't about to spend hours and hours and hours on detailing runways. Right now you're seeing me build this last little area of construction on the tarmac here. I just kind of made an area where maybe they were paving some sort of part of the tarmac with some new material. And then right now you're seeing me place down tunnel blocks all throughout the terminal. And the reason I did this was because those terminals have like little legs under them, and they're completely see-through underneath, and so that's kind of where the passengers and the buses and things, you can see them like walking around if you're at a low angle, and that's kind of like how they enter and exit the airport and how they like go to their gates and stuff. And so I didn't really want to be able to see that. I wanted that all to be hidden, so that's kind of why I was covering those areas up with the tunnel blocks. And now what you're seeing me do is, this is really pretty much the last thing, is dealing with these lights in this episode and the decals and the runway markings. So I'm placing down kind of these strips of lights that kind of denote, where an airplane is supposed to approach from, the exact angle that they come from. It's a pretty common thing. In some places they do it slightly differently in terms of the arrangement of the lights. But there's some good props for this kind of stuff on the workshop. And then next thing you're seeing me do now is the runway markings. And this I took pretty much exactly from Google Earth, where you'll see me, I'm moving it up now so I can put these kind of triangle shaped, arrow shaped pieces. There's some specific ones that are on the workshop that are made for this exact thing with these arrows pointing at the runway, but I just decided to do it with the pieces that I already had. And so there's arrows, those little arrows, then there's a big section of really big strips. There's like the runway number, and then there's littler markings on the left and the right of the runway kind of leading up for a while. So that's kind of, I think, the standard way that runways have their markings, and that's sort of what I was attempting to copy here. I think from a distance it actually looks really good because these runway markings are buildings and they're not props, so their LOD distance is really high, and you can see them from really far ways away when you're zoomed out. And yeah, I think they look really good. I kind of randomly put numbers on the runways. I know that there is a system in real life of like, if the runway's facing west, it needs to be an odd number or something like that. And I didn't really go into any detail with that or like trying to look up and see what it was supposed to be. I just put numbers that I liked in those areas, which, is what it is. And then, yeah, just some decals and then some lights around the edges. There's sort of an issue with removing the lights on the airplane runways and the taxiways. I have the hide it mod and I have it set to remove them, but every time I load the game back up, it just puts them back for some reason. So right now you're seeing them and they're gone, but sometimes they're back and it's kind of odd, but that's just how it is. That's honestly about it for this episode. Next episode, I'm going to be working on this cargo part of the airport. Yet another airport episode. Getting a little tired of the airport, but I just want to finish it and be done with it. And I think that area is going to be pretty cool. It's actually going to be fairly big, and I'm going to discuss it in detail next episode. But it's the cargo airport has actually solved all of my importing issues in Kobayashi Island. I know this has been my thing that I've just been complaining about over and over in this series, is being able to import stuff and export stuff properly, but it's finally able to do it, and the area is going to be very big and dealing with a lot of importing and exporting. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys next time.